Once we've built this deep sense of trust, then we need to be able to isolate and remove friction. The world around us is moving faster than it ever has before, which means uncertainty, conflict, change is around every corner. And I don't mean like every day. In many cases, I mean every hour. The problem with this, though, is that in all of the research that I've done, I've learned that there are two things that people hate. The first is change, and the second is the way things are. Which means we can't rock the boat too much, right? But we know that we can't stand still either. So what should we do instead? I think what we should make is what I like to call our small 1-degree shifts. A 1-degree shift is that smallest viable change that we can make over and over and over as we navigate an uncertain world around us. As we navigate a world that's rapidly changing faster than we've ever seen before. But don't just take it from me. Take it from the 2002 British cycling team, okay? Which in the 76-year history of the Olympics, by the way, not only had they not made it to win a gold, they hadn't even made it to the podium. They tried team after team, coach after coach, and nothing was working until finally in 2002, they brought in a new coach. His name was Dave Brailsford. And it was Brailsford's goal, Brailsford's mission, to be able to take this team from basically zero to hero. Take this team from zero to be able to have a podium spot in 2008 in Beijing. Now, Brailsford knew the importance of these marginal gains, of these small 1-degree shifts, of small innovation, of small experimentation to reduce some of the friction on his team. But what he knew is that first he had to understand where the friction was coming from. So he asked these 5 questions, which again are 5 questions that you can start to ask your team too. He first asked, where is there friction? And truthfully, in any situation where we have friction, intuitively we know where that top level of friction is coming from, right? But he wanted to dive a little bit deeper and find where is that root of the friction coming from. So he started with the question, where is there friction? And it turns out the team wasn't winning. They weren't even coming close. So what should they be doing about it? Well, previous coaches thought they should push their team harder and harder and harder. They should buy them better equipment and better gear. The problem was that when they pushed them harder and harder and harder, they ended up burning out. And they already had the best equipment literally in the world, so where was it really going wrong? They had to dig one level deeper to figure out where that friction was coming from. And what they found is that when the riders were on the road, they were getting sick too often. So what's that smallest viable change I can make? What's that 1-degree shift that I can make? What Brailsford decided to do is to bring a surgeon in to teach the team how to wash their hands more effectively, okay? And sure enough, it started to work. The riders, they got sick less. Then what happened next? Well, he said, well, this is kind of working. Why don't I give everyone on my team a portable hand sanitizer bottle? And when I do that, they'll be able to sanitize their hands more often. Remember, this is like pre-COVID, so this is pretty revolutionary stuff. He said, well, this is working actually pretty well. What's the next 1-degree shift I can make? So he said, well, I'm going to send an email out to the cycling community that says, not out of disrespect, but just out of this health and safety of my riders, we're not going to be doing handshakes anymore after our meets. We'll do elbow bumps instead. Again, pretty far ahead of his time. But it started to work. The riders got sick less. He said, wow, let's keep playing with this. Let's look at sleep next. And what he found was when they were on the road, they were getting less sleep than when they were at home. And he noticed the riders weren't as comfortable when they were on the road. So he really dove in and looked at the analytics. He found that different riders actually slept better at different temperatures. So in this case, he literally made 1-degree shifts in the thermostat until he could optimize the temperature that riders were sleeping at. He didn't stop there. He said, well, why don't you bring in your own pillows? It doesn't take that much space in the suitcase or in the van or on the plane. And you'll be able to feel a little bit more like you're at home when we're on the road. And sure enough, when the riders slept at better temperatures with a little bit of familiarity from home, they started to sleep a little bit better. And when they slept better, they rode a little bit better. When they rode a little bit better, they performed and won a little bit more. But what was happening as they made all of these shifts behind the scenes is that they were starting to have a little bit more fun. They were starting to play a little bit more. They started to decentralize, to democratize these 1-degree shifts. Coach Brailsford said, why don't you share all of your own 1-degree shifts in your diets, in your fitness routines, in your relationships, in your sleep schedules, and let's see how much fun we can have with these small little 1-degree shifts. Now they started to trust their coach a little bit more. They started to trust each other a little bit more. And they made all of these slight changes while having fun on this trajectory to more and more wins when they were on the track. 6 months later, one of the riders noticed that her bike was a little dirty in the gearbox. And she said, "Coach, it's not coming from the velodrome or from the track. I'm not sure where this dirt's coming from." So they traced back to the maintenance truck together, and what they found is that the maintenance truck was filthy, like just filthy. Now, the $100,000 fix would be to get a new maintenance truck. The 1 degree shift would just be to sweep and vacuum out the back of the truck and paint that black floor that was hiding all that dust and dirt, just paint that white. Now you could see when dust and dirt was developing. You could see what was happening. Well, that grime was there, and you could just sweep it and vacuum it out faster. Again, between 2002 and 2008, we're talking hundreds of 1 degree shifts, little changes over and over and over again. Did they all work? No. But they continued to learn from it, removing that friction to the point where finally, in 2008, when the British cycling team headed to the world stage in Beijing, not only did they make it to the podium, but they won 7 out of 10 gold medals. Wow. And if you think that was a fluke, the Paralympic team adopted the same philosophy. They won 7 out of 10 gold medals as well. And it wasn't even a fluke, because in 2012, in London, the British cycling team again won 7 out of 10 gold medals. Brailsford, who was knighted along the way, his name is now Sir Dave Brailsford, which I think is just like a nice little cherry on top, by the way, was then assigned to coach the Tour de France team, which before 2012 had never won the Tour de France. But between 2012 and 2022, the Brits have won the Tour de France 6 times. Here's the truth, a 1 degree shift isn't all that much, nor is it supposed to be. That's kind of the whole point. We don't want to rock the boat too much, but we can't stand still either. In fact, when we went to the moon in '69, if that rocket was off the launch angle by just 1 degree at takeoff, you probably wouldn't even have been able to notice from way back. You probably wouldn't even notice 1 degree off launch angle. Here's the thing. If we would have launched off 1 degree off launch angle, we would have missed the moon by about 2,100 miles, or twice the distance of the moon. We all have big goals. We all have big ambitions. But the problem is, a lot of the times they can be intimidating. They can be scary. They can be hard to tackle. What if instead we looked at all the little 1 degree shifts that we could make on our way to what our goals are, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years?